Welcome to Unplanned and Untold, a podcast that dives into the real life, unexpected twists of facing an unplanned pregnancy in college. Join us as we listen to the unplanned and untold stories of those who have overcome the odds in order to achieve their goals. Welcome back to another episode of Unplanned and Untold. I'm your host, Caitlin Willing, and today we have a special guest, Sarah Campbell. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be with you.
Yes. And girl, your story, you have some twists and turns and all. I mean, when I got a little briefing of it, I was like, wow, we have a lot in common.
It doesn't make a lot of sense. There's a lot of, you're kidding, right? You're no way you thought that. There's a whole lot of that. But it is what it is. It's my story. So.
Yes, it's a piece of your story. I love
That's right.
it. And so take me back to where you were born and raised, I guess I would say, and what high school was like.
Sure. So I'm from Montgomery, Alabama, just right up the road from Auburn, where y'all's first site was.
Yes.
And just born and raised in Montgomery. I was raised in a very conservative Christian home.
Okay.
Lots of rules, lots of a lot of love. It was great. I have nothing negative to say about the way I was brought up.
Right.
It's just that it was very religious and strict, and the rules were the rules, and you don't break the rules.
Yeah.
Went to a little private Christian high school in town, and that just reiterated a lot more of that, rules, rules, rules. You do things a certain way, and we care what people think, and appearances are everything. Like we need to make sure that we keep the faith and keep everything looking pretty.
100%.
And so that's kind of how I was raised, follow the rules, be a good girl, do what you're supposed to do, and you'll be fine. And that's not exactly how life turned out.
Some people have to be told that the fire is hot and they still touch it anyway to figure out that it's hot. And that's how I was.
Yes.
So
yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
Which, sometimes we learn through some of the hardest circumstances in our lives, but it's just a way that we have to go about things sometimes.
That's right. It was, I learned all the things and I knew all the rules and I followed all the rules. Really. I did for a very long time.
Right.
I played exactly by the book. I played life just like I was taught, and it still didn't matter in some situations.
Sure.
There were still times where there wasn't a rule book or a playbook to follow. I had never, crossed certain roads before, and that's when, you're
got yourself in some hot water.
Get yourself into some mess when you're naive and young and trying to be a grown up.
Right. And so you went to Auburn University, correct?
Yes. I went to Auburn. I was 17.
17 freshman. Whew.
I graduated early and I had skipped a grade in elementary school. So I have a February birthday. I was already a late birthday in the year. And on top of that, I was a year younger than everybody else in my class. So I graduated. I had just turned 17 and graduated in May right after that. And in August, I moved into the dorms at Auburn. It was my dream. Always wanted to go to school at Auburn. It was like a big, they always say, big fish in a little pond, or you're going to be a little fish in the ocean. And that was like, oh my gosh, like the world's funniest small town, Alabama. Auburn was like the big world to me, but it was. I was like, oh my gosh, I'm going to get to see the world. I'm going to meet new people that have different views than me and learn about things that I've been so sheltered from. But I was excited, to do that. And it was great. I went to the dorms. Like I said, I moved into the dorms that year. I lived in the dorms for a year. I had moved to college. My friends from high school, I had a couple that came with me. The guy I was dating in high school went to Auburn too. So we kind of started that journey together from high school and into college. And everything was great. I was involved in all kinds of campus events and organizations. And I mean, I was living the dream. I loved it. Then things kind of started to fall apart. Me and that boyfriend, we broke up, and it's life. We were young, we had been together for a while, and we were each other's first loves, as you would think. We had all these firsts together, but at the end of the day, it didn't work out. It wasn't right, you know, and
Right.
when that fell apart, it kind of sent me in a spiral right before my junior year. And that's when everything gets real interesting.
So you kind of became a little rebellious, you know, testing the waters a little bit. And my question to you is, you're dating people and, you know, you just break up and you're starting to date again. Did your parents ever talk to you about sex growing up in such a strict home?
Oh, absolutely not.
No.
No, no. The rules, the rules were don't have sex. That was the
Right.
rule. Don't do it because we said don't do it.
Right.
And the reasons why you don't do it is because you'll get, I mean, they never said this to me, but this is how it came across to me growing up was if you have sex, you'll get pregnant or you'll get an STD or AIDS,
Mm-hmm.
or you probably will die and go to hell. I mean, one of those, those are the options. Like those
So
are the
positive.
only things that can happen if you have sex. But if you wait until you're married to have sex, it's like rainbows and unicorns and it's like Disney World, the best thing ever. And for some reason, that's exactly what I believed. I thought, you know, so I didn't have a lot of experience in that world, you know, through high school again and into even freshman, sophomore year in college, I was still a good girl, like
Right.
dating somebody for years and we didn't have sex. Like
Right.
we followed all the rules and it still fell apart. So I kind of got the mindset, well, the rules are out the window. I mean, let's do whatever we want and let's date around. And that is when I met my daughter's dad, the summer before my junior year. I was a student recruiter at Auburn. I was doing all the things, but also trying to like come into my own and figure out what I believed for me and what I wanted to be known for. And I wanted to be true to myself. And I met this guy who told me I was pretty and he knew how to say all the right things and he was way more experienced than me. I mean, gosh, I had never done anything and here he was like, I don't even know what number on his roster I was. I mean, we probably don't want to know.
Yeah.
The reason he was such a smooth talker.
Right. He had lots of practice.
He had lots of practice. But yeah, I met him and things got hot and heavy fast that summer. And I was still stuck to my rules though. I was like, I can do a lot of things and pretend like I'm not doing it. But if I sleep with him, like if I get pregnant, if like, oh my gosh, if something happens, I'm not going to be able to hide that. And so, I mean, we got to figure out a way to do this where I won't get pregnant and I won't go to hell. So how do we do that? My 19-year-old mind said, just you get married. That's what you do.
So that was the initial solution, was to just get married after knowing each other. How long?
6 weeks.
6 weeks as a baby in college.
Yeah.
Wow.
6 weeks. And surprisingly, looking back, it's crazy to me as a mom of an almost 14-year-old.
Right.
I'm like, are you kidding me? Like this is what I thought would do. But really, I thought that marriage, like some piece of paper, was going to make everything okay. And that was going to be fine. So I talked to him about it and we came up with this plan that we would get married and we would elope. Essentially, we would go to the courthouse, we would get married. We weren't going to tell anybody at all.
Gosh.
And then at the end of that year, we'd just be fake married. He was at school in Auburn. In Montgomery, he went to AUM.
Gotcha.
And I was in Auburn. So he was on his own living in an apartment. I was living in an apartment with my girls and we were just going to fake it so that we could, he didn't feel guilty.
Right.
So that I wouldn't feel guilty for sleeping with him. And then we would get fake engaged and then we would get fake married and nobody would ever know.
Right. And
I thought it was a good idea.
Brilliant idea. It sounded at the time, but eventually you end up spilling the beans to your mom first, or who was first?
It was my mom. Me and my mom are super close. I call her, 18 times a day, have my whole life.
Right.
And she called me the afternoon that we had gone to the courthouse. We went to the courthouse at like 1:00 that day. It was a Wednesday, I believe. And we went to the courthouse, did the paperwork. The sweet little clerk at the courthouse was like, "Are you sure?
Are we sure? Y'all look mighty young."
y'all don't have any parents here. You know, you're not going to be able to be on your parents' insurance. Are you sure? Because back then you couldn't stay on your parents' insurance, you know, as long as you can now.
Right.
And we were like, yeah, we got it. Let's do it. And we did. And it was like 2 or 3 hours later, my mom called me and she was like, what's wrong with you? And
she
I was
knew something in her mama heart knew.
that mom intuition is real. And she knew. And she was like, I don't know what you're not telling me, but you're not okay. And I was like, Mom, I'm fine. Like, that's the best day of my life. Are you kidding me? I'm gonna go sleep with this dude tonight. This is gonna be great.
All is well.
Yeah, everything's great, Mom. And she's like, no, are you home? And I was like, I'm around. I can be home. And she's like, no, what city are you in?
Right.
And I was in Wetumpka, which is in between kind of Montgomery and Auburn, is where my little girl's dad is from.
Okay.
And so we had gotten married in Wetumpka because I thought that was good, you know, different,
a little more secret, a little,
yeah. I don't know anybody over there.
Layer.
Yeah, in case they publish it in the newspaper. I don't know anybody. It's fine. Right. No, she was like, why are you doing in Wetumpka? And I was like, oh, I'm just hanging out with Hunter. And she was like, I think you need to get home now. You need to get home now. I said, okay, got it. So I went home and walked in and she was like, why is he here? He was with me.
Right.
She was like, you're coming home from school. Wow. I don't know what is going on with you, but something is up and I can't trust you. I can't trust that you're telling me the truth. And I'm scared. I'm scared for what's about to happen with you. And I need, you're coming home. We're not paying the bills anymore. You're coming home. And I was like, well, if you want to do that, I'm married. I do whatever I want.
I'm married. We're just going to pull that card in this moment. What the heck was her reaction?
Oh, I thought she was going to die. I really thought she was going to throw up. She was so mad. Like, and she had never been mad with me like that. Me and my dad had always butted heads and we knew how to deal with conflict with each other. That was nothing. We're very similar people. We're very opinionated and loud. So that was fine. When I knew how to deal with conflict with him. But for my mom to be so upset and disappointed, and I broke her heart. I mean, she was just devastated. And I couldn't understand why. I was like, Mom, it's like no big deal. It's fine. We'll do a fake wedding. Just keep the secret, you know? The secret didn't last long. So we told our families after that because we knew it was going to get out, and told our friends, all of which were shocked and not happy with us and thought that I was absolutely crazy. Right. Had a lot of friends that were like, hey, red flag, sis.
Yeah.
He's going to marry you for this and was going to secret marry you. Like, this is probably not good. Like, y'all are not on the same page. And it wasn't good. But for the minute, we thought it was. Right. And you know, I moved back from Auburn. We got an apartment in Montgomery, and we came up with the plan that I would get a job. I tried to do school that was in the summer. We got married at the end of the summer. So I tried to transfer to AUM and do a semester. And I just loved Auburn. Like, it wasn't Auburn. There's something about the campus at Auburn that, like, once you're there and you're in it, there's just nothing in the world like it. People, you know, Auburn just stays in your heart. So I was like, I can't do this. I don't want to do it. I want to go back to Auburn. And that wasn't an option because I had just got cut off financially. And he was working and he was going to school and trying to finish his undergrad too. So we decided together, I'll get a job. I'll quit school. I'll go get a job where we can have insurance coverage and make sure we at least have some type of stable income.
Sure.
And then he was waiting tables at night and going to school during the day full time. So he continued to go to school. We said, you do that, I'll do work. And then when you graduate, we'll swap it around. I'll go finish my degree and you can work.
Okay.
But we didn't make it that far.
Yeah. Shockingly.
Yeah. Who would have thought? Everyone but me.
So at some point, y'all had the discussion of not necessarily wanting to try for a baby, correct? Like, you're married, you were young, but that really wasn't part of the plan this young.
Exactly. We did not want to have babies super young. I had friends in high school that were a year ahead of me that one got pregnant our senior year. My best friend in the whole wide world, still to this day, got pregnant my senior year. She had just graduated. And I had seen how hard that was. And I just knew going to school was not going to be something I could do with a kid. Or so I
Right.
thought.
Right.
I mean, it was just not in the cards. I didn't know anybody that had done it. Everyone I know that had gotten pregnant in school before they got their degree dropped out.
Right.
And so we didn't want that. Also, it only took about 2 months for that relationship to get super rocky.
Okay.
And I didn't know if I wanted to have a baby with him. I didn't know if that was I didn't know if we were going to make it.
Mm-hmm.
And I really just didn't want to bring a baby into a broken home and a broken family. And again, the rules, right? The rules are the rules. And a family together is better than a split up family, no matter what it looks like. So I really had this mentality that I had made this bed and I would lay in it and I was going to stay married to him because I was going to prove everybody wrong, but I didn't want to get pregnant. And by this point, I figured out how that happened. So we talked about that. I got on birth control. I have ADHD, so I could never remember to take the pill.
Right.
Never remember. I was always forgetting. And talked to my doctor about that. And he was like, well, there are things you can do that are not a daily pill. So I got on the NuvaRing because I didn't have to remember all the time. And 3 months later, I was pregnant.
Golly.
And we went over with the doctor. Like, I was like, how does this happen? And he was like, well, we know how it happens. Sarah was like, yeah, but I got on this because I couldn't remember to take the pill.
Right.
And he was like, well, I mean, nothing's 100% effective.
Wow.
Like there's always a chance.
Right.
And that's what I hadn't considered, you know? I mean, I knew I had to trust myself to make sure that I was taking care of my body and what I wanted. And I knew that meant I needed to make sure the birth control was covered. I couldn't trust anybody else to do that. And I thought I did,
but
nothing is 100% except for not, right?
Exactly.
I ended up pregnant right after my 20th birthday.
Wow.
Yeah.
20th birthday in a marriage that was a secret is now kind of not exactly what you thought it was going to be. Right. And what a perfect storm this is. So you eventually have your daughter, correct?
Yes. She was born in December.
And she kind of changed your outlook on your situation, shook things up a little bit for y'all. I know there's a separation between you and your then husband. Talk to me a little bit about how that happened.
So things were bad. Like I said, we were young and we were immature, both of us. I mean, I can't put it all on him. We were young and immature, and there were things that he was still getting to live the frat boy life and hang with his buddies. And here I was, huge pregnant, and I can't go out to the bar with you, huge pregnant. Like I can't, I'm at home by myself all the time if I'm not at work.
Right.
And a lot of mistrust and just a lot of animosity and verbal back and forth. And it was just peace was not a word that was in our home. Like it was just always something that we were arguing about. Somebody was always leaving and slamming the door. And Izzy was born after all of that. I thought, I can choose bad for me. I will live in terrible for me. I will not choose that for another human. I will not choose that for my daughter. I'm going to get emotional. I'm just not going to. Like, she deserves two parents that love each other enough to walk away and love her enough to give her a great life, rather than what the world will look at the outside of our family and say, oh, it's picture perfect, but it's hell at home.
Right.
Like, that's not okay. And I didn't want to raise her like that. So when she was born, and, there were a couple of things, red flags that came up right after she was born, where I just knew he and I were not on the same page. He was not ready to be a 100% husband and dad, and I needed them to be.
Sure.
And so at that point, I kind of knew I needed to start getting things together and figuring it out. Ate a lot of crow and talked to my parents about it. And my dad made the comment. He said, nobody's making you stay.
Wow.
Nobody's making you stay. Like, I can appreciate that you're trying so hard, but also, if it's not healthy for you, nobody expects you to live in that kind of a situation. If you guys are so terrible to one another, again, and it wasn't just him. I mean, I was young and naive and immature too. He said, if y'all are doing this to one another, this is just not healthy. So, you can always come home. And I didn't.
Right.
I didn't
You're
know
waiting
that.
on that approval.
I was like, I can come home. And he was like, well, absolutely you can come home. Like, what are you thinking? Of course you can come home. And I thought about it and I said, well, Dad, I'm gonna try. Like, I'm still gonna try. I want to work it out for Izzy and for me. I want to do this. And so he said, well, the door's open. The door's open. If you want to come home, I'm here. So I started planning and figuring things out. And it was the 4th of July. We had a disagreement, we'll say. Izzy was like 7 months old. And we had a disagreement, and he had left in front of the place where we lived. I had parked out front, and he had my keys, and he had gone somewhere with a friend. And I had a sister-in-law that lived just a few doors down, and she came over to check on me because I was visibly upset. And she was asking me, well, what do you want to do? I said, I want to leave, but I don't know how. And she said, well, where are your keys? I said, he's got my keys. And she said, well, where, you have a spare key? You got a spare key hidden somewhere? Like, you have a spare key to your car in the house, right? Where are your keys? And I was like, I don't have them. They're with all my stuff. He has my stuff. And she was like, well, remember, like, there was a couple weeks ago, I borrowed your key and I dropped it under your porch. Did you ever go get it? And I was like, you dropped a key under my porch? What? And she's like, oh, well, I'll go get it. And so she rips the pinning out from under our porch and crawls under our porch and finds in the dark my spare key.
Wow.
And I let myself in the house, got my spare key. She stayed outside with Izzy in the car. And I packed up a bag real quick and off I went. Yep. Wow. That was it. I was gone. I was very, very blessed to have some really good friends I had met at work that had been through a similar situation and just a breakup with, a baby and all. And she had told me if I ever needed anything to call her.
Right.
And it so happened my parents were out of town, and I knew that's where he would go look for me.
Sure.
So I called her, and she said, come on.
Wow.
Come on. So I stayed with them for a week until my parents got back and we could start the legal process of, being separated and getting a custody agreement in place and all, so that Izzy could have, parents that could work together. It took us a long time. But it doesn't happen overnight. It's been a very bumpy road, but I did move back in with my parents. And after I moved back in with them, I started thinking, well, I've got this job that I got because I had to have some insurance.
Right.
And looking back, like, it was all very, very amazing the way God lined it up. Like, my office had an on-site daycare. So Izzy was right there with me at work. I didn't have to worry about carting her all over. And I was an administrative assistant. I had got a little promotion from my original paper pushing job. So I was an administrative assistant and was working with people. And one of my bosses told me, he was like, you're smart. Like, you can, are you ever thought about finishing your degree? And I was like, well, yeah, but I'm a mom now. I'm a single mom. And like, I can't go to school. I got to work. I got to have insurance coverage. I got to pay for daycare. Like, my paychecks after I pay for daycare and insurance are $200 every 2 weeks. Like, that's not even enough for my car payment and my car insurance.
Yeah.
Like, if not for my parents, I would literally be living on the side of the road working full time. Like, there was no way. Yeah. And he just kept encouraging me. He was like, you should think about it. You should think about it. Think about going back. You could do this. There are other jobs that you could do. Like, there's lots of places in this company you can move up to. You don't have to be my assistant for the rest of your career. You could do a lot. And I was like, well, I don't know, maybe. And it kind of got my wheels turning.
Sure.
And I looked into classes, and I wanted to go back to Auburn so bad.
Right.
Talked to my mom and dad about it and changed my work schedule around. I was like, I can do 2 classes. I'll work from 7 to 3:30, and then I'll pick Izzy up from daycare, take her to my parents, drop her off, and I'll be in Auburn by 5 for class.
Right.
And then I'll go to 2 classes. I'll be home by 10 o'clock. It's perfect.
You figured it out.
Again, I'm a genius. I have great plans. I was a great planner back in my early years. But it was just too much.
Yeah.
I couldn't sustain it. I watched a baby steps interview video with one of the girls that was in
Yes.
the house, and she was talking about that drive, and it just
Ashley.
broke me because I was like, that's what I did. Like there are so many
Yes.
times I should have been dead on the side of the road from
Yeah.
falling asleep, just
Sure.
being purely exhausted. I mean, it's just
Right.
too much. So it was hard. And after that, I just couldn't do it. So I stopped again. I dropped out again.
Right.
And I was like, well, oh well, at least that's one more semester down, 8 to go, like that was gonna, be the end of it. And I'm like, well, I guess I'll get Izzy graduated and I'll move on with life. And when she's out of school and she's graduated, and I'll go back to college later and finish it for myself. Like that was the new plan, and it was realistic. And I had kind of just accepted that's how it was going to be. So,
But you ended up going back, correct?
yeah, again, it was like the series of the wildest things that twists and turns. There's a college in Montgomery. It's a little small private. Oh, it's not that small anymore. Faulkner University is in Montgomery.
Faulkner, sure.
They have a law school, and it's pretty well known, but it's also private. It's pricey. And so I never even thought about it. Like it was like in my hometown and expensive. Psh, no thanks. Like I don't want it. But my dad had some friends that worked there, and they have like a benefit dinner that they do every year. They'll have a big speaker come in. It's usually some type of political speaker that will come in, and it's real fancy, and they share their vision for the school for the next year and things they have planned. And my mom and dad were supposed to go, but my mom had something come up and she couldn't go. So my dad asked if, since Izzy was with her dad, if I would want to go. He's like, Daddy, daughter day, let's go. Like, you go with me. It'll be fun. You'll get to see, this political figure that you admire. Like, let's go do it. I thought, well, okay, sure, let's go. So I went, and at that dinner, they announced that they were starting a degree completion program for students that had at least 60 hours of credit that could transfer.
Okay.
And if you would start their program, you would finish it in 1 year. Wow. And I was like, nah, it's too good to be true. There's no way. I didn't say anything. I kept it close to me and kind of did all the research, because I had gotten a lot of I told you so's in the last few years. I had made some ridiculous plans, as we know. And I wasn't going to do that again. I was going to have it all ironed out. I was going to have it planned to present to my parents and told them how I could do this, because I knew they were going to have questions. Sure. So I did the research and I looked it up. I got my student loans in place. I applied. I did all these things. All I had to do was tell Faulkner yes, and went to my parents and said, I need help. Yeah. Like I need help. I want to do this. Yeah. But I need help. This is what it's going to take. If you will help me for 1 year, I need 1 year. I can do it. Like I know I can do it. And they were like, well, of course you can do it, but we can't commit to 2 or 3 more years, Sarah. Like we can't do that. And you can't quit working. We can't afford to support you like that anymore, especially with the baby. And I knew they were right. And I said, no, I promise. It's 1 year. I'm going to do it. I'm going to pay for it. I've already got it worked out. All I need is every other Saturday, I need you to keep busy. She was with her dad every other weekend. Right. And the classes were offered on Saturdays. Right. And so they said, okay, we'll give you 1 year. And I started the first week in January, and I graduated the second week in December.
Heck yeah, girl.
And it's done. Like it was impossible, I thought, but it wasn't. Like we did it. My parents and me and Izzy, we did it.
Wow. What an accomplishment, an absolute accomplishment. And although it took you a little bit longer, you still did it. You chased down your dream and you completed it. And I'm just so proud of you and so appreciate you sharing your resiliency. That's the word I think about, is like, you're very resilient and you kept after it. And that is a beautiful quality to have. And I know you are a supporter of baby steps. And so my question to you is, why do you support baby steps? What was it about baby steps that made you want to donate?
So baby steps, when I heard about it, it was just like, I don't know. I was like, oh my gosh, that's the answer. Like all the hard things that I went through, like thank God I had my parents that were so supportive. And I never would have thought they would have been, given the way that I was raised. I
Sure.
thought that they were going to be like, get out of here. Like
Right.
you have broken the rules. And they weren't. Like they were the picture of love and support.
Wow.
And I just would want moms to know, like, you can do this, but you can't do it without support. You really can't. It doesn't matter where your support comes from, if it's from your family, if it's from friends, if it's from baby steps in an organization. These moms can't do it without some type of support. And I was like, that's the answer. Like, that's the support that moms need who don't have families like I had that can step in and help you and pull the extra weight and watch your kid every other Saturday and help you with the groceries when your paycheck was a little shorter than you thought it was going to be because you had to miss some time, because the baby was sick and you didn't get your full 40 hours and now you need diapers.
Right.
Like there's so many things that go into being a student mom that you don't think about. And there's not a lot of places where it's convenient or even conducive to being a parent and a student.
Exactly.
So when I saw the support that y'all were offering, I was like, oh my gosh, this is what 20-year-old Sarah needed to be able to finish that dream in Auburn. Like
Right.
I could have done it there.
Right.
Or my friends who chose not to do it purely because they didn't have support.
Right.
They could have finished. Like that's something that's so needed. So my husband and I now, me and Izzy's dad obviously got divorced when we were very young, and Izzy was very young. But I since have been remarried, and we've been married for 10 years now. And
Congrats.
thank you. My husband was like, obviously, Sarah, like you were a single mom when I met you, and you were doing the school thing. Like, yes, this is what we want to support and what we want to do. So anything we can do to help another mom not have to figure out the plan and make some terrible plans
Right.
before she gets to the right one.
Right.
Like we're on board. Like, sister, let me tell you how that plan works out. It's bad. These people have good plans. Listen to them.
Well, we appreciate it so much. And I hope you're able to see where your generosity is impacting literally generations. I mean, we have first generation graduates. We just had 4 girls graduate from Auburn. And the story is always the same when they walk across that stage, either pregnant or with their little one. It's, I don't think I could have done this without y'all. And you're a part of that. You're a part of them saying that to us. So thank you so much for your support. And thank you for sharing your story of just encouragement and, looking at your life now. Would you have ever thought that the life you're living now could have happened when you first found out you were pregnant?
Oh my God, no. Like my life is so different now. And there's a bunch of different factors that go into it, but it's funny to think back. Like my daughter's dad, like I call him one of my friends now. We are friends. We have come a long way after custody battles and
sure,
gosh, the terrible things that we have said to one another over the years. Like we're both married and have been married for, like I said, I've been married 10 years. I think he and his wife have been married 9 years or so. And we all have, like Izzy has this really modern family where we really do all get along, and it's not always perfect, right? Nothing is. There's always a hiccup. There's always something. People gonna people, right? Like we always do. But the life that she has is so beautiful. And if you would have told me after I dropped out, while he was still going to school, he was pursuing a law degree. He's an attorney, and I just never would have thought that this side that I would be in an established career. I mean, I'm back in school again. I mean, I'm going to be an attorney too soon. And
Love
it's like,
that.
You're
still going.
Who would have thought that this, college dropout who got pregnant and had this crazy plan of, getting secret married and then having a baby, like, and then the scandal, my God, the scandal. I mean, who would have thought that 14 years later, like it would come full circle and that Izzy's life would be what it is. She's surrounded by love and happiness and The 4 parents that adore her, and like
Beautiful.
75 grandparents. I don't know how many grandparents the kid has. I mean, my husband's parents are divorced, so we've got lots of modern family
relatives,
steps
right?
and in-laws going on, but she is surrounded by so much love, and it was worth eating the crow.
Yeah.
It was worth taking the support and saying, "Hey, I messed up and I don't know where to go and I don't know what to do. Can you help me? Like, I just need some help. My decision was bad. My plan was bad. Can you help me out, please?" And it was so hard to say that. Like, they say that, like, the pill is huge, like it's a big horse pill, but it goes down really easy. Like, just take the support to any of the moms that, anybody that's facing that situation. Like, reach out and take the support, because you cannot do it by yourself. But you can do anything as long as you have support. You can do literally anything. So,
well, thank you so much, Sarah, for sharing your story.
oh, thank you for having me. I'm just so honored that y'all even do what you do and help girls that are in situations like we were. So I'm so thrilled to be a part of it.
Oh, well, we appreciate you, and to all of our listeners, thank you so much for tuning in, and we hope to have you back in 2 weeks with a new episode of Unplanned and Untold. Bye-bye. If you have faced an unplanned pregnancy while pursuing your college education, we would love to learn more about your story and consider you to be a guest on our next podcast. Just email national@babysteps.org.